Ventura, welcome back. We used to have the Warped Van tour out here, and Grateful Dead, and all those, and then people complained about people walking on their lawns and the like, and the drugs, and our emergency room physician was all worried. And what's evolved over the next 25 years, since that was 25 years ago, the Grateful Dead were here, is this opioid epidemic, and it's been made very uncomfortable for physicians. As a physician, we want to treat pain properly, but physicians are really the leading diverters of drugs. And we've been taught that, oh, you can't ignore pain, and if your patient's complaining, you need to treat it properly. And unfortunately, it's become an epidemic, and Steve is here to help us prevent our epidemic. So we ran into each other at the Faro Center for Innovation.
That's right.
Running through as fast as you could.
Yep.
And so thank you for sitting still for the 9 minutes we have together. So
thank you.
Tell us about your company, and then this focusing on the opioid epidemic.
Okay, so we're a digital health company. We mainly work in public health. So the way public health campaigns are delivered now tend to be through a broadcast medium. So we put them out on television or on billboards and radio, which have been effective in the past, but we find that more people are using their mobile devices, and less people are engaged in some of the broadcast mediums. So we wanted to develop some technology that could individualize a public health campaign for millions of people. So we use artificial intelligence or machine learning, and we use a concept called gamification, which is kind of like your airline rewards program. Mm-hmm. So when you fly, you get your points, and then you can upgrade, or even your coffee card at your local cafe where you get it punched and eventually get a free coffee. Those are all concepts of gamification. So what we wanted to do would apply that to a public health perspective and say, well, what if we use those techniques to keep people engaged in the way that they learned about their health? And that's the key to prevention. Prevention really relies on people changing their knowledge, having a desire then to change who they are or what they want to do, which then leads, as we know, to behavior change. But behavior change is tough, and particularly when you're dealing with something like the opioid epidemic, which we're very excited to be working with different levels of government and even here locally. And you mentioned the Vans Warped Tour, so that's been really exciting. But the opioid epidemic, you're right, Chris, it's affecting everyone now. This is the worst public health crisis in American history, and it's having a massive impact.
Well, and I think we were talking earlier, it's not just the patients who felt whatever else it was in their life that the opioids seem to help with, the depression or anxiety, mm-hmm. or whatever, beyond treating pain, but also as physicians. And so in a high volume practice, it's just easier to write for 50 Vicodin, 100 Valium, and see the next patient and get them out the door. So changing physician behavior.
Absolutely. And so changing physician behavior is important because, you know, the CDC came out last year with some new guidelines for physicians that said you need to write a prescription for 3 days, and we needed to lower the dosage rate of those prescriptions because the research shows that the higher the rate of prescriptions that a doctor will prescribe, the higher his, even though the dosage may not be higher, but the more people he has who get addicted. And so this is just a really interesting epidemic. So it's affecting physicians, it's affecting everyday families. I mean, it's now the leading cause of death in America. So every 16 minutes, someone in America dies from an opioid-related overdose, whether it be a prescription painkiller or heroin. 70% of young people now who are addicted to heroin got their start through prescription painkillers. In our youth, 14 to 20-year-olds, 80% of drug overdoses are accidental, and 65% of those are caused by prescription painkillers. So this is a massive problem that's affecting our society. So we wanted to combine our technology, which can individualize that engagement on a mobile device, and then we wanted to figure out a way, how do we reach how do we reach a large population? And how would we get someone to download the app? I was actually talking to Paul earlier today, who was on your show earlier, and he said, how do you get people to be interested? Because we have so many apps out there, we have so many things to do. So I got a call in December from a local person here in California, a music producer by the name of Kevin Lyman, who founded the Vans Warped Tour back in 1996. It's the longest running music festival in American history. Such artists as Blink-182 and Green Day, Black Eyed Peas, Gwen Stefani, and No Doubt, and of course your own Katy Perry got their start on the Vans Warped Tour. And it averages about 500 to 700,000 kids a summer across America, 37 stops. And Kevin called us and said, look, I'm losing members of my family and my friends. You know, he was friends with Prince. He was buddies with Tom Petty. And these are people who did not want to die. These were accidental overdoses. And so what he said was, could we use your technology and figure out a new way to reach the young people who are attending the Vans Warped Tour? So we said, yeah, well, that's really interesting, because if we combine music, which is that universal language, and we combine tech, which, you know, 80-something%, almost 90% of our kids are on a mobile device, and I think on average we open it 150 times a day, so we're on it all the time. So if we could combine that with a platform that could reward people for engaging in evidence-based content and research, but then also had a streetwear brand. So we created a campaign called FIND, which stands for Full Energy, No Drugs. And it's been incredibly exciting so far. We've had just over 5,000 kids on board onto the app, even though the Vans Warped Tour hasn't started. And those who on board can win free tickets to the tour. Once they're on the tour, if they come to the FIND booth and show that they've done the learning on the app, then they get a free pass to one of two headlining acts, We the Kings or Water Parks. So the cool thing about the app is that it's called Preventum, and they onboard onto the FIND campaign. And as they learn about opioids, they earn points. And then they can cash those points in for either money can't buy experiences, like standing on the side of the stage of one of their favorite bands, or some cool FIND gear. And as they learn, they're earning those points, but they're learning about things that are relevant. You know, how to spot an overdose. What are the signs of an overdose? What do I do in case of an overdose? How do I get help? What happens if I mix fentanyl, which is not a party drug? It's 40 times more addictive than heroin. But what happens if I mix that with, you know, an allergy medicine? Well, I'm going to overdose and die. But we don't know that, and our young people are not getting that in drug classes in high school. And so our goal is to provide that education, to arm them. And FIND is about creating a movement where they take a stand against opioids. So it's not a top-down, curriculum-based, it's more of a grassroots campaign. And that's what we're really excited about.
Well, we're very excited too. As a physician, one of the things we're doing at Ventura County Medical Center is we're looking what is the natural course of a pain requiring, and because our physicians need that kind of information. So when we talk to a patient, so we have about 30 seconds left. What's your message? So we've got FIND.
Well, come out to Vans Warped Tour. Vans Warped Tour, its fourth stop this year is in Ventura at the fairgrounds on June 24th. So those of you who haven't gotten your tickets, please do so. Come by the FIND tent. Come say hello. Learn about opioids, download the Preventum app, spread the word, because it's an effort to really make a stand against opioids.
And are you going to be doing any local advertising in newspapers? And
I think the Warped Tour.
Podcasting,
I think the Warped Tour does. We're a small nonprofit, so we don't have an advertising budget, and this is it. So thank you for the opportunity.
All right. So Ventura, it's time for you to, unfortunately, have to learn about how to deal with opioid overdoses. So Ventura, it's time for you to get moving.